Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Legal Tech Week, the show where we all talk about the top stories in legal tech and innovation from the past week. And my name is Bob Ambrogi. I write the blog Law Sites and have the podcast Law Next. And we're thrilled to have a guest panelist with us today, Julie Shabuali, who has been on this show once before, all of like 2 years ago. It's hard to believe we've been doing this show that long even. But we have. So Julie, let's start with having you introduce yourself before we get going.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Shabuali, and I am a legal tech journalist based in Canada. I write primarily for the Canadian Bar Association, but a few other places as well. And I'm so happy to talk legal tech with you guys.
Great to have you today. And our some of our regular panelists here today. Let's go around and introduce ourselves. Steve, want to start?
Hey, Stephen Embry here. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I write the blog Tech Law Crossroads, and as of a couple of 3 days ago, I am now the past chair of the ABA Law Practice Division.
How's that feel? That must feel good.
We'll see.
And Stephanie.
Stephanie Wilkins, editor-in-chief of Legal Tech News.
You're muted, or Joe's muted, or somebody's muted.
No, maybe that microphone is too far away.
I'm just going to do this. Stephanie Wilkins, editor-in-chief of Legal Tech News at ALM. I'm sitting across the table from Joe, and we are tech experts very clearly.
All right, well, let's see if Joe can introduce himself.
Joe Patrice from Above the Law and the Thinking Like a Lawyer podcast. And I think that microphone is too far away because it should have worked through my sound. Anyway.
All right. Where are you guys? Joe's house? Or are you at?
Just outside here.
All right. And last but not least today, Niki.
Hi, everyone. Niki Black. I am the head of SME and external education at Affinipay with my case in LawPay. I write legal tech columns for ABA Journal, Above the Law, the Daily Record, and other outlets. And I also oversee and write my case in LawPay's benchmark reports and our legal industry report.
Well, since we are all here in a Zoom webinar, there's been a bit of a dust up this week about Zoom, and that has implications for lawyers who use Zoom and legal practitioners who use Zoom. Steve, you've got that story. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, I have to say I was kind of shocked by this, to tell you the truth. So back in March, Zoom changed its terms and conditions, and I guess they really didn't say a lot about it because I didn't hear about it. But the new terms and conditions grant Zoom the perpetual, worldwide, non-exclusive, royalty-free, sublicensable, and transferable license and all other rights to the content of any of its users for the purposes of machine learning, artificial intelligence training, and testing. And obviously, that kind of rings some alarm bells for those in legal, because so much content that lawyers use Zoom, that takes place when lawyers use Zoom, could involve confidential or sensitive information for which your right is lost. Very similar to what ChatGPT, the claims that are made about ChatGPT, that uses any content you put on that for purposes of training the AI program that it has. And of course, lots of lawyers have been screaming about that. Then last week, Zoom announced that was how did they put it? That language was a, quote, process failure, unquote. I'm not exactly sure what that is Zoom speak to mean. But they said, not to worry. We would never use any of your content. Consent, of course. But of course, the problem is that at least the article I read, which was in Rolling Stone, the problem is that it's really sort of an opt-out kind of thing, and it's not particularly easy to withdraw your consent and still use Zoom, depending upon the configuration that the person who has set the call up. And the other thing, of course, is that the article brought out is that a number of other companies may may do the same thing in the future, because this data is really so valuable. It's more data than ever existed before, in a different format than ever before, and could be used in so many different and exploitative ways than it could before. So it's real danger. And I couldn't help thinking about the ethical opinion. I believe it was in New York, where the bar association said, if you have confidential client information in your contacts in your phone, then you can't agree to let any entity have access to that unless you're sure that it's not going to be sold someplace else and it's not going to be accessible by a human being. And I don't know why a similar principle wouldn't apply here. So it was really, it kind of took me aback a little bit, since Zoom is the go-to program of choice. Although the other thing that I thought of as I was reading all this is, unfortunately, I say unfortunately, maybe I shouldn't say unfortunately. Unfortunately, it may spur people to demand that Teams be used, which is, at least in my mind, is a lot
worse than death.
clunkier. Yes, a lot clunkier. But if I were to be talking to a client, as so many of us do, using Zoom, I mean, now it's a little concerning, right? I mean, you should say at the beginning of the conversation, oh, by the way, Zoom might take this content. It just opens up a lot of doors, and I'm surprised people haven't been talking about it before. So that really sort of shocked me in a lot of ways.
Look, we're doing our part here by saying a bunch of things that clearly no one should train themselves on. So we're doing our part to throw a wrench in the large language model training.
Yeah, it's a little scary that it's training its large language model on our conversations here.
Well, I wonder though, you referenced the New York ethics opinion. Well, there was one that preceded that I think may have been referenced in the one you were talking about, that dealt with Gmail, the free version of Gmail years when it first came out, and it serves up ads. And that opinion said that that was not a problem for lawyers to use Gmail. That specific issue was not a problem, because when Gmail scanned your email in order to serve up appropriate ads that might be interesting to you, it was a machine. And sort of the language you just referenced, the machine was scanning it. And so for just Google's internal purposes. And so therefore, it was not problematic, at least in terms of confidentiality and ethics. So I think that there's different analogies to be drawn depending on which opinion you look at. So it's definitely one of those areas where you very clearly need some ethical guidance. So it'll be super interesting to me to see, Texas. I just wrote about this for my Daily Record column that came out today. Texas, California, New York have all either formed commissions or have announced plans to come out with ethical guidance relating to AI. So it'll be interesting to see what they all have to say about issues like this, and obviously others as well.
A couple of points that the article made, I think we have talked about on this show as we go forward, and these generative AI models use content, they use more and more AI generated content. And the article pointed out that that's one of the reasons that Zoom may be really interested in this, because this is not going to be AI generated content. And of course, the conclusion of the article, the author said, despite all the assurances by Zoom, just like Meta and Twitter and all these other social media platforms, we can just trust them that they're not going to do anything, violate our sacred privacy rights, right? I mean, just trust us.
Right.
Well, I mean, it might not be for the exact same reasons, but I mean, even like when things went virtual during the pandemic, everyone was saying, don't use Zoom for your depositions or your court hearings. Like, people created secure systems for that. And so maybe we just need to use those for all legal meetings. Like, it's not that much of a stretch. I know this is taking things a step farther and we didn't know these policies were there, but I mean, probably in retrospect, we shouldn't have been doing it in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, and it's worth noting that there are legal specific video conferencing applications out there that are encrypted and secure, and you don't have to be using Zoom for meetings with your clients. Legaler is one that's been around for a number of years, and there are others
Right.
specifically designed for that purpose. I mean, part of what shocked me about this is just how poorly just Zoom handled this over the last few days, or over the last week or so since this came out. And apparently it was like Hacker News or something that disclosed it. And then they sort of immediately put out this statement that oh no, we're not using this, and they amended their terms of service, I guess, to put the statement in that they're not going to use it to train their AI model, but they did not change the other language in the terms of
Right.
service that basically gave them the absolute right to use
Right.
user content for whatever the heck they want to use it for.
Just
It's like-
trust us,
Yeah, just trust
Yeah,
us.
what was
guys.
What was the term you said they used, like process error or something? I mean, I think that's
Process.
just,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
have to.
think that's
I'm
just
gonna,
code for somebody figured this out and caught us.
yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
coded. We fucked
Yeah.
up.
Exactly.
Right.
They got
But-
dragged on social media because it was a comms person, I think, who was responding. It wasn't necessarily the CEO or somebody who actually wrote the terms of service, like legal counsel. And so people were like, you can spin this all you want, but you haven't actually changed the terms of service.
Right.
And Niki, you brought up a really good point with Gmail. They also were dragged online about supposedly using Gmail content to train their AI. And then they came out and said, oh, no, just for ads. We're not doing that at all. But as we all know, Bard AI is being incorporated into all of Google's suites. So are they using it? Are they not? They haven't clarified that either.
So I'll have to remember that phrase next time I get caught doing something wrong. Just a process failure, guys. I'm sorry. Shit happens.
My brain has way too many process failures these days.
That sounds like Trump's latest defense. It was just a process failure.
No, he defends everything he does. He doesn't try and explain it away.
It's also like the tech version of wardrobe malfunction, right? Like we're just going to call it this ridiculous term for oops.
All right. Well, we don't want to video conference for fear of breaching confidentiality. What about typing emails in public to our clients, Joe?
Yeah. Mark in the chat correctly noted that was the right transition. So the scary thing of the week is that, for a long time, Above the Law used to have a lot of fun stories of dumb partners who would get on their cell phones and say have confidential conversations while they're on the Excella. That was, one of those things that ultimately people figured out that they couldn't do. And they, started typing things, and that was a lot safer. It is no longer safe. According to some researchers out of the UK, they had decided, wait a minute, keyboards make distinct sounds and they're all laid out the same. Could we use an iPhone microphone and some AI and position it near a computer and it figure out, based on the keystrokes and how far away and what's going on, what the people are typing? And it turns out with 95% accuracy, they can. And with 93% accuracy, they were capable of figuring it out over Zoom as somebody's typing their the chats that I'm typing to the audience here. They would be able to figure that out from the podcast recording of this later, what I was saying. Some somewhat terrifying stuff. Obviously, that, like, I think this is obviously something that has existed in spycraft, either in reality or definitely in Mission Impossible level spycraft for years and years. However, the way in which this is something that you can pretty easily put together with equipment that you have in your pocket, that's new, and a new kind of frightening thing. And my takeaway from it is, we could talk about this a little bit, but my takeaway from it was maybe working from home isn't so terrible. Maybe commuting is the problem. So we should probably not let our associates do that.
But that being said, I agree. I'm all for that argument that to convince businesses to let people work remotely. But they did say that it could also during Zoom calls record the things you were typing during a Zoom call. And do you remember, I think we talked about this in the show, someone else was using AI or just maybe just regular tech to look at people's glasses and the reflections of what they saw on their screen during Zoom calls. So I feel like no matter what we do, we're just giving our information away by existing.
My
That's
brother, who's far older than me, used to cheat against me in card games by reading my cards in my glasses. But it's not even just the contents, and that's a true story. It's not even the contents of the emails. They're using this to figure out passwords, the keystrokes, they can figure out passwords too. So, I mean, and that's like a huge security risk.
Well, we have the
And
keyboard
apparently, even if
expert
they're
in the
like
audience
quiet,
here.
yeah, I thought about that too. Even if they're quiet keyboards, that doesn't even solve the issue, apparently.
Yeah.
I'm wondering for the survey, did it account for language differences or accessibility? Because I know we're probably all using the same keyboards, but other people
Right.
use different keyboards for other things. And then also for language, you know, maybe I'm typing in French. My French is terrible. But hey, maybe my uncle's here, who's a French professor, is typing on my keyboard, but you think it's me typing. It wouldn't come out in gibberish in English, right?
So yeah, so I believe, as I recall this report, it's been a couple days since I dug into it. I believe they ran the test on French too, and were successful with it. Now, one of the quips I make in my article is, hey, maybe it's finally time for people to switch over to that Dvorak keyboard, you know, that's always been out there, the one that's laid out more efficiently and nobody uses. But you know, that would screw them up, at least for a while. Yeah, but yeah. Oh yeah, okay. So somebody in the chat uses it. Yeah. Yeah, or a password manager. That would help too, I suppose. But yeah.
So how does this work? Do you actually have to be like sitting there somehow recording the audio of the keyboard and then take it and
Yeah, they used a regular iPhone mic positioned, I think, like 3 feet or something like that from the keyboard, and it was able to triangulate the keystrokes based on where they were at that distance. Yeah, some distance where it was like reasonable that somebody could be. And yeah.
So Joe,
Yeah.
given the fact that you and Stephanie are sort of sharing a mic and she's probably about 3 feet from you.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I wouldn't type anything.
Yeah.
I'm never good at participating in the comments anyway, so. It's good.
Oh yeah. So the issue here is not your own phone. It's that some bad actor takes their phone and like positions it such that they can hear your typing.
Yeah, that's why I was warning Stephanie.
Yeah, very clearly, Joe, you're the bad actor. I think you missed that part.
Well, okay, so apparently AI can lend itself to some security problems or confidentiality issues, but Julie, you have a story in which apparently the Biden administration thinks AI might be able to also help us with some cybersecurity issues.
Yes, I'm curious if people think an AI contest will save us all, because that is what the White House is betting on in terms of cybersecurity. So they have started a contest, and all the major players on board, Google, Microsoft, and others, they are going to just lend their AI tech for free for this contest. It's going for 2 years for a $4 million prize, where hackers and engineers and the like can come in and create an unhackable system. That is the goal of this, because the government is worried about cybersecurity, particularly with our infrastructure. And of course, as we know, law firms are still huge targets for hackers because of all the tasty confidential and financial information that law firms hold. And so the Biden administration thinks this is the best foot forward. And the article that I have here is saying that AI perhaps is even the savior for cybersecurity, and that we can even automate cybersecurity functions. Now, the thing that I find ironic is that we are saying artificial intelligence, which we just are talking about the dangers and risks, is actually the tech savior that we need to protect our information when it comes to cybersecurity.
Trust us.
Trust us, trust the contest. In 2 years, we're going to have an open source solution to our cybersecurity woes.
It makes me feel like someone from the Biden administration just recently consumed either like a young adult sci-fi movie or book where there was some sort of contest that, solved all the problems of the world. And so they're like, that's a great idea. Let's do it. Like, it just sounds completely out there. It's one of the many things that it's just like we're in a simulation into stress test. I know I say this all the time, but every day something happens and you're like, how can this be reality? Like, it doesn't make sense. We're living in crazy times. Like I tell you.
So I think there is something to be said for AI because it can adapt to things faster than people can. It could be a valuable way of dealing with this, but it just strikes me as though, like, of all of this is going to solve all of security things I've heard, quantum computing seems way more likely to do that than AI. So I don't understand why the contest is about this, but whatever. It'll be fun. Somebody will get a $4 million or whatever. That's great. Yay.
I'm certain that Google in its C-suite has been really poring over this and trying to figure out how they can spend a lot of resources to win the $4 million, which is probably more than they make. And as I've been speaking.
That's a really good point. I hadn't even thought about that. Like, what kind of like carrot is that to dangle in front of these companies? Come on.
Really, like Clarence Thomas friends give him more than that for a weekend of travel.
Right.
And this is in 2 years. So, I don't know if 4 million will go as far in 2 years as it does now. But, picking up on Joe's point, if we were going to talk about the biggest cybersecurity risks right now, it is quantum computing, right? And that's what China has been investing in for the past decade or so. But no, we think we've got to focus on AI. And I think it's interesting that they've got the companies that are building the platforms right now that people are talking about regulatory, we need more regulation over AI. Those are the same companies that are actually lending their tech to this contest. So I'm not really sure. This feels very Hunger Games to me. There's a 22-year-old out there that's getting a big bonus for thinking up this idea.
I was absolutely thinking like a dystopian YA novel. So I'm glad you said Hunger Games. But I guess if we live in that simulation, those are the hackers that want to do the bad. So might as well give them the contest to do the good. I don't know.
I'm sorry. Are we then going to make them make the two finalists like kill each other for sport? And we get I understand dystopian novels, young adult novels here, but I feel like Hunger Games might not be the one that we're going with unless you do have a bolder vision for the White House's security regime. And that would be a more fun contest. And hey, we could finally get the Musk Zuckerberg cage fight that we were all supposed to get,
Well, I think at that point, 2 years down the road, the stress test will almost be complete. So the most ridiculous stuff's going to be happening anyway. So that probably won't even be surprising, either of those eventualities. It's just going to be part of the craziness of our lives. So it'll be exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
By then, the robots will rise up and they will kill the best hacker because they will give away their secrets. This has all been put in place by the robots.
I'm watching this discussion go by about the keyboards, and I have a very loud keyboard. I don't know about you people, and sometimes I also use a mechanical keyboard thanks to Legal Type, and which is even louder. And I'm thinking, are there people that I'm like interviewing or in fact know exactly what I'm typing the entire time I'm interviewing? I'm never going to talk to Tony Valenti on Zoom again. That's over. Sorry. All right. Well, if AI doesn't necessarily come to the rescue in cybersecurity, maybe new laws and regulations written for the era of AI? Is there any kind of a transition there? Niki, what do you say?
Well, so I thought this article was super interesting. I think that I should say that CPO magazine, which is where it came from, their editors were not on duty when this was published because it's horribly written and horribly edited.
God,
that being
I think it's
said,
Google translators. I think it was translated because it makes no sense.
The guy was the author is Polish, so I think maybe that's part of it, but it's horribly edited. That being said, and I'll put it here in the comments, the concept is a really interesting one, although an improbable one in my opinion. What he talks about and posits is that in order to, because we're heading into an AI-driven future where artificial intelligence tools provide us with all of our information, our laws and regulations are currently not encoded properly. They're written for human minds, not machines. And so what he suggests is that we need to rewrite all of our laws and regulations from a coder's perspective with the coding semantics, semantics that machines will understand, the computers will understand, in addition to like tags and that type of thing, so that way, when we make inquiries about our laws and regulations, we'll get really accurate, instantaneous results. And he also touches a little bit on access to justice, if I recall correctly as well. But I thought it was a fascinating idea, just the idea that if this is the future we're headed towards, we're finally going to have to rewrite all of our laws to comport with how computers view the world. And I thought it was really interesting, but I think we can barely get our legislators to pass a single law. I can't imagine how they would agree to rewrite rewrite everything in this particular structure, but I thought it was a really interesting concept.
Put a writer on it that does something like really ridiculous, like just put a writer on it that says that and Hunter Biden is sentenced to life in prison, and then maybe you could get a bipartisan consensus to pass something. Like you got to think outside the box to get bipartisanship here.
Well,
I was reading this article thinking, does anybody? Oh, go ahead, Julie. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm getting a lag here. Zoom is not enjoying the content that we're bringing to
We've made it mad.
We have. But I'm just thinking of all those terrible hearings they had with Meta and Google and others where they're like, is this how retweet works? Is this how sharing works? And these are the folks who are able to write legislation in a way that can be coded correctly. they can be like, I think they finally figured out how Facebook works now, even, and maybe they're probably still confused about what X is, because where's Twitter now? So I wonder about that. But there are researchers who have been working on this. Jason Morris in Canada has been doing this for quite a few years. And France actually has several initiatives right now where they're trying to code their laws so that they can do what this author is talking about. I don't think France and US have the same politics going on.
The oh God, I just lost it. Oh yeah, no. One thing I was just going to comment. You mentioned finding out how retweets work, which I noticed over the weekend changed to reposts in the continuing effort to light flame to any actually valuable trademarks that they own.
They're not re-X's.
That's the thing. For a while, they were going to call them Zeets, like with an Xeet, and then I don't know whatever happened to that. I don't even think they're trying to make them called Zeets anymore. I think they've given up on everything.
Yeah, but Jason Wilson just said in the chat what I was thinking about in more than over a decade, but in 2009 or something, Lawrence Lessig wrote "Law is Code" or "Code is Law" or something like that. He wrote a book. It was an open source book published on the online. About the idea that a new system of essentially computer coded law is going to be necessary to regulate this new world of the internet. That hasn't happened yet, but the idea itself is not entirely new. I think the author, as you say, despite the grammar in the article, made an interesting presentation about it. But it is. I also think it's, again, kind of like what you said, Niki, it's getting any legislator to do this. I mean, in my day job, I'm a lobbyist and I work with legislators all the time. And the idea that you're going to get legislators to completely rewrite the books, all the laws on the books to conform to some code like this is just in tagging structure or whatever else is probably pretty absurd. It's like the death of the billable hour. It's not ever gonna. We can talk about it for a long time. It's not going to happen.
The problem with Lessig's whole idea about using computers that way is that, as a firm believer in this current Supreme Court majority, the way in which you would have to interpret everything the way Fortran would have done it, because that's the original computer coding language, and you'd have like anything else. I'm doing an originalism joke, people. Come on, anybody? This is all right. I'm getting. People in the chat need to like tell me that was good. All right, never mind.
Stephanie's typing laugh emojis, I can tell.
I understood the joke, Joe. I got it. I got it.
That's the problem with people muting themselves, is I can never tell if anyone on the panel gets it. But I mean, I get why we have to mute ourselves, but yeah, all right.
All right.
Wow.
Let's.
That was an amazing, amazing one in the comments. Yes.
Yeah. Could you repeat your joke, Joe? Somebody missed it.
Oh,
Oh, please save us all. No.
Where are we? What do we? All right. Stephanie. I guess
Yes, sir.
this is in some way. There's no good transition to your story except that it does involve AI. So that's something.
I mean, that's rare.
Yeah. It's so rare that we have more than one AI story on this show.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have a lot of big law AI stories lately, though, so that's, you know, a new development. Yeah, mine was the fact that Orrick this summer taught their summer associates prompt engineering. They had AltaClaro come in. They invested in AltaClaro like 2 years ago, and they usually use them for more like traditional legal training subjects, transactional subjects, things like that. But they actually just asked them, can you create a course on prompt engineering, which they did. They gave it to the summers. It was actually really successful. I talked to a couple of the summers and I was honestly blown away at how bright and pulled together they were. I do not remember being that on my game when I was that age at all. But yeah, and so they're going to roll it out to more attorneys in the future. And yeah, I mean, I just thought that was actually a really cool recognition of where this is all going and that we're going to need these kind of skills. Also a pretty cool thing to go back to your third year of law school having learned. Like I was joking when just to totally date myself, the cool tech we got when I was a summer is we were the first ones to get a BlackBerry, and this is far cooler.
Oh my God.
What cool tech did you get when you were a summer, Steve?
Yeah, I think I got a number two pencil.
I just loved how they were, you know, it's a large firm, and all the data shows that larger firms are more amenable to this idea of AI and streamlining all the workflows and firing everybody below the top level. But I still really, I really appreciated how they were sort of acknowledging the reality of what was coming and taking these steps to make sure that people in their firm started to understand these issues. So I thought it was, you know, granted, they're like training them to fire them is sort of the impression I'm getting, but you know, they'll be leaving the firm with some wonderful knowledge that will hopefully help them upon their exit. But I always get suspicious when you see the large firms doing anything remotely like that. But
I did also appreciate that they were giving them the training is platform agnostic, because Orrick is one of the they were one of the pilots of co-counsel, and they actually trained them on co-counsel too. And they even said, you know, I mean, co-counsel can give you tips on how to prompt co-counsel. We just wanted to give broader prompt engineering training, and part of it too was about the responsible use of generative AI, and it wasn't just here's how to write a good prompt. And I mean, Orrick has always been one of the, you know, if you had to think of top 10 firms that are sort of tech forward, they were on there. So, I mean, I actually was impressed that they went beyond just, hey, we have co-counsel, play with that.
Oh, I agree 100%. I really appreciated the forward thinking way that they presented that concept and talked about it, and that they're actually doing that for sure.
Yeah, I was impressed by it too, particularly in these times when, you know, there are some firms and some businesses that are saying, well, just nobody use generative AI, just forget it, you know, and that's obviously not going to work. People are going to use it, and so it was forward thinking. And I also thought it was cool that they gave the training to summer associates, you know, not just associates or partners in the firm. That, you know, these are people who, you know, may come back to the firm or they may not, but yet they did something. Yeah,
they gave it to Summers first, with a handful of people like in their innovation department also took it, but they rolled it out as a larger training to Summers first, and then now going forward are going to do a couple more tranches of their internal AI groups and stuff like that. Just the timing was right. The Summers got it towards the end of their summer, they said, but again, the timing was perfect. We just launched it with our summers. I'm like, it's pretty cool incentive to go back to the firm if you're really into the tech. And
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
And if AltaClaro
One-
developed this, I assume they can then roll it out to other customers of theirs as well, right?
And maybe
Mhm.
even there'll be some law schools that might think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
Although law schools are typically run as our friend Kevin O'Keefe said one time, they're run by people who, it would only be a good idea if they thought of it. So if somebody else thought of it, it couldn't possibly be a good idea.
Yeah. But yeah, to your point, Bob, the founders at AltaClaro did say they have other firms, like they've been getting a lot of calls about it. They have other firms that are interested in, so they're going to keep, iterating the training and learning from it. And they definitely plan to roll it out to more firms that are interested. And I'm probably beyond firms too, I imagine.
Yeah. Do we have a rim shot sound effect yet? We need Dennis Kennedy is on a roll this morning, this afternoon rather. Did the training show them how to plan for having their start dates deferred? Nope, probably not.
I want, the breakdown of our microphone system broke my ability to do rim shots. I'll find a new way of doing that.
All right, yeah, we got to get the sound effects going. All right, well, I think I've been through everybody's story but my own, so I will talk about my story that I did this week, which was that the law firm Gunderson Dettmer launched basically its own proprietary chat application based on generative AI. It is right now using the OpenAI model through Microsoft Azure. But they've developed it to be platform agnostic, and so they're going to be testing a bunch of the various models with it, and it's got a couple of pretty cool features. Let me drop it in the chat here. I mean, the main part of it is just sort of your sort of standard chat interface. I call it ChatGD for Gunderson Dettmer, of course, your sort of standard chat interface. But they've got this ability to do basically retrieval augmented generation, where anybody in the firm is able to upload a document or a set of documents and a collection of documents in order to help guide the querying and the chat and the answers that it's providing. And they're going to be continuing to expand out that capability. Given that I've been a writer for much of my career and a blogger for a big part of my career, I should learn to be very careful whenever I say somebody is the first to do something, which I did say in this article, that they were the first to develop. What I wrote is they were the first U.S. firm to develop a proprietary internal tool using generative AI technology.
And I thought that was a very, very smart and accurate qualifier.
Yeah, because so Denton's had like a few days before. As a matter of fact, between the time I interviewed him and the time I wrote about it, Denton's had announced that it planned to launch its own proprietary version of ChatGPT, but it was vague about when it was launching it, and so it wasn't clear at that point whether it actually had launched it. But sure enough, on LinkedIn, I've now gotten a couple of comments from people saying, "Hey, we developed something like 6 months ago, and how come you didn't write about us?" And then I'm like, well, did you publicize it? Oh, well, no, we didn't really tell anybody.
Well, the number of things, especially in this AI space, I'd say that people were like, hey, they're not the first, we did it. I'm like, well, maybe you should have said something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you start splitting hairs over like, well, what did you do? And what did they, and, a lot of people will just like create an API into ChatGPT and call it, we've developed an AI product or something. And it's not the same thing. But I thought this was really cool, and I thought part of what was cool about it is really their idea that it, as much as they kind of wanted to do it to develop the tool, they also wanted to, as Joe Green said in the interview, their chief innovation officer, that kind of just want to get their hands dirty in playing around with this technology, and also want to get people, the lawyers in the firm kind of building up their muscles in terms of using this technology and learning how to do it and get comfortable with it. I mean, he said a lot of there are a number of lawyers in the firm who are very astute at it, but others to whom this is something entirely new. And so I just thought it was a really forward-thinking approach to doing this kind of a thing. Stephanie, I know you guys wrote about it too. And
Yeah, some of it, American Lawyer picked it up, so we let them run with it. On the Dentons, we did a follow-up interview with the Dentons people, and I think in terms of is it live yet? I feel like, I think they said it's live to some people like in the UK, but it's unclear when it's gonna go out across the firm, their particular one. But yeah, I think between these two and then also, the Orrick training, it's just, I feel like in the last few weeks, I've been hearing from or reading about a lot more traction in big law when it comes to generative AI, as opposed to, I feel like for the last few months, we've been talking more about product releases and, vendors doing this. And I feel like it's really sinking in. Like, I feel like every other day you see a big law firm creating a new chief AI position or something like that too. So, I mean, it definitely is getting traction in big law in a way that I have not seen most other tech do, which is, part of our inevitable simulation, right, Niki?
right.
100%. Everything that was not now is, and that's just because of the stress test. So it's all good. I just hang on to that, and it's comforting.
All right, that was all I had on my list. Anything else anybody wanted to talk about in the stories?
Well, I can do some announcementing. There's a bunch of there's a bunch of people who follow this chat, and people who are very plugged in. If you want to meet with folks at ILTA, you should be letting us know, because those of us who are going to ILTA are in the midst of scheduling right now. So let us know so we can work out how to get that set up. If you know of any parties happening, by all means, let us know, because we're in the midst of planning what parties we're going to, and we need to know. Yeah, those sorts of things.
And if you want to buy us lunch, let us know.
Oh, yes. No, we had a awesome offer for that, which is great.
Or drinks, or just, presents, gifts.
No, we actually had after last year, after ILTA, when we were all complaining about the lack of food in the press room, apparently somebody in the chat last year said, "Oh, I'll buy you lunch next year," and everybody kind of let it pass and forgot about it. And then that person reached out this week and said, following up on my promise from the chat to buy you guys lunch. And so that was kind of cool. I thought that it came out of this show.
And that person's in the chat now, so thank you very much.
Yeah. We won't name names.
We're Dennis raises what about journalistic ethics? We're disclosing it. See, the thing that Clarence Thomas doesn't do. We are disclosing that somebody has offered to buy us lunch. So now you know.
And we're only going to write bad things about that company from now on. Is the other thing. We've
I don't know about that.
I was kidding about the gifts, just in case, that was not clear. At least I don't know if anyone else wants gifts, but I was kidding. I really didn't mean it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm sure. I'm sure that GPT is not going to take that comment out of context when it trains off of this.
But Joe, you're asking people to schedule meetings with us, and I don't know how we're going to do that when we don't know when the mandatory press briefings are. We have to guess at where we're supposed to be and when we're supposed to be there.
No, wait. No, okay. Oh, maybe I'm confused. I thought they're immediately after the keynotes, right?
No.
Yeah. What if the keynote goes for an extra half an hour or something?
Yeah.
Is it?
It's every day after the
keynote time or the?
So it's every day after the keynote, but it doesn't begin immediately after, because they give us 15-minute window to get to the new room. So it's 15 minutes after the keynote, and they will last 15 to 20. I'm just going to call them 15. Sorry, 15 to 20, and then they're in the yacht room, whatever.
Right.
There is.
But if the keynote is scheduled to end at 10, but it doesn't end until 10:15, then is the briefing at 10:15 or at 10:30?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, wait, that's a great question. If that's the case, I'm going with what it was scheduled for, and I have to apologize to all of the ILTA people because I have meetings scheduled immediately after.
Yeah, I emailed that question to ILTA, but I haven't gotten an answer.
But also on which schedule. I feel like we could do a social experiment where we each take one of the 5 or more different agendas that are out there that don't match up, and we each take one and see if we ever end up in the same place at the same time.
I think that's a
it's-
good idea.
And then there are press briefings scheduled at different times than the press meetings or something like that. Press
Yeah, I think
conferences, different times than the press briefings.
Yes, I think those, however, not the mandatory ones. I think those are situations where they have gathered people to give, I'm guessing based on like the limited information I have, where they've gathered people to like give their announcement, and they're inviting us to be in the media room at the time that happened, which is I think is a lovely gesture in theory, but doesn't understand the reality that we're basically getting asked to do meetings constantly, and we have to carve out 3 weeks ahead of time anytime that we aren't at a meeting.
I like if there are actually segues, I like Joe's suggestion, rent one. I am all over that. Are there really? Maybe there's scooters that we can take, you know, those electric scooters that they have in the
There's
city.
a boat. There's a boat between there's a boat between the Dolphin and the Yacht Club if you
I
want.
don't know.
But
Is
yeah.
everyone here? Julie, are you going to be there or no? I think the rest of us are.
Yeah, I was trying to bring up my calendar, and then
Oh, good.
yeah, Zoom was like freaking out, and I was like, okay, I'll just assume I'm going. But I am down with the segue idea. I just feel like every legal conference now that I go to, I need a segue. It's just, how am I supposed to get
No.
in three
Sarah
buildings.
in the chat makes clear there's a quad bike rental. Let's do this, people. Let's get 4 of us on a bike.
Oh, that would be so much
Pictures.
fun. Because if there's 3 buildings in the Florida heat, like this sounds like just torture. I don't know who came up with this idea.
So the Dolphin and the Swan are right across from each other. That's fine.
Even that's a
And
walk on a hot day.
it is a walk on a hot day. That's fair. But the yacht and the beach being across a bay, that is going to be rough. Because unless you're taking that boat across, it is kind of a jaunt to get around the water to it.
Did you see
Paddle
that?
boats? Do they have
staff
paddle
has-
boats?
Did you see that the ILTA staff has sponsored golf carts in the chat?
No, they said she said Net Documents has sponsored golf carts for
For the ILTA staff.
Oh, for the ILTA staff.
we
Yes.
need media golf carts? What are we talking about, guys? Media golf carts.
Exactly. Really. They had the golf carts last time it was at Disney too. That was a thing then, yeah. Or they had something like that. All right. Yeah, we didn't have that problem with AAL where it just rained all the time when they were in Boston recently.
Yeah, that was pretty
yeah.
rough.
Yeah,
It was fun.
But
you know?
both Steve and I finally wrote our blog posts wrapping up AAL this week a little bit late, and we were both they were kind of wondering whether we were going to write something, I think, and we were both kind of hearing from some folks at AAL like, "Are you guys going to write anything?" And I wanted to, and I just never got around to it. When I finally did, it wasn't a really good. I wasn't thrilled with my assessment of the conference, I'm sorry to say. So I feel like it was a little bit, be careful what you ask for.
Listen, you're very lucky librarians weren't charging you 10 cents a day for every day it was late.
That is the joke.
That one was
Joe.
funny, Joe.
That is the joke of the show.
All right.
Joe's on a roll today.
He always is.
He had to redeem himself for that other one that fell so flat.
Michelle clarified in the comments that the ILTA staff is driving the carts. I misread the comment. So the carts are not just for them. That makes more sense.
I want to know which ELTA staff are driving. It's like, I want the one that Joy's driving. I bet she's a crazy driver.
I'm like, now you're being picky?
No, kidding. All right. Well, anything else? Are you done with your announcements, Joe? Okay.
I
All
am.
right,
I am.
then. All right, good. Well, I think that's going to do it then for this week's show. And Julie, really appreciate your sitting in with us. It's a pleasure to have you. And everybody else, we will be back next week with our final pre-ILTA show before some of us head off to Orlando anyway. And I hope to see everybody then. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend.
See ya.